All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Couch Warrior podcast. As always, I'm your host, Mike, and today we're going to be breaking down UFC Vegas 105. As always, before we do it, we're going to talk about last week. We're going to recap last week. I didn't put out a recap video this week just because I haven't had time. Been trying to get everything done, tape everything. And we also have PFL on Thursday, and I would really like to do a video tomorrow. And it's just a lot. So let's do a quick recap, and then we'll hop into the card. We got 13 fights to talk about. And honestly, it's a really tricky card. I only have one bet. I have a bunch of bets listed on my little notes that I have where I write down my possible bets that I'm thinking about, that I'm watching the lines for. And we'll talk about those as they come. As you guys know now, most of my bets, except for the weekly free bet, are behind a paywall now. It's $10 a month on Dub Club. All the links are in the bio of this video and in all my bios and in all of my socials, and you can always DM me too, and I'll hook you up with the promo code as well. My breakdowns, my notes are there too, and you get my bets. Right now, it's just the one, and that's why I haven't given out a free bet yet, because I only have one bet. And let's jump into it. All right, we'll catch up with the chat first. What's up, Gabriella69? Thank you for tuning in. Champ Bets, let's go indeed. Always good to see you. Yeah, the lines are nasty, but we'll figure some stuff out. And you guys know I like my big dogs. So let's recap last week first. I lost let's call it 2 units, 1.99. I lost 2 units. I'll be completely real. I don't think I made any terrible bets other than like one, and I'll talk about it now. But so Steve Ercik plus 195 for 1 unit. I don't think that was a bad bet. He lost. He did. Moreno looked really good, but I still think that's a winnable fight for Ercik. I still think plus 195 was maybe a bit too wide. So I don't hate that bet, especially like we're talking now. It's hindsight's 2020, right? But I can see why I went there, and I think it was fine. Drew Dober minus 120, 1.2 units. I forced it. I forced it. Maybe I need to stop listening to other people while I drive, because during my drives I'm bored. I have a long drive every single day, and I listen to other people's content, and I'm pretty good at kind of ignoring, like I listen to their stuff. I like to hear what they're saying, but I don't really take what they're saying into account too much. But everybody was on Dober. Everybody's telling me why Dober's going to win. And I'm taping it, and I'm thinking to myself, like, my gut feeling was Dober probably wins, but I shouldn't touch this because he's taken so much damage over the years. And I fell into it. I was like, you know what? But he's still durable. He took all these shots from Gene Silva. He'll be okay. And then he gets deaded in the first. It was rough. So that was a bad bet. That was probably the one bad bet that I made this past weekend. I mean, you can argue a few of them were, but I think that was the worst one. Melky Costa plus 160 for 1 unit. That cash, that was a good bet. I'm proud of that read. I'm glad I went through with it because that was one of the first spots that stuck out to me. That was one of the first spots that I was targeting. And then I almost talked myself out of it because C-Rod is C-Rod, and I do love the guy. But I'm glad I made that bet. It was a good bet. Plus 160 was a great line. Won 1.6 units there, and that kept us from disaster. I had Palastri plus 195 for 1 unit. I don't know if it was a good bet or a bad bet. She came through in the 3rd round, but it would have been nice if she could do that earlier. Loopy also had to poop, so I don't know how much of that had to play with the 3rd round and how it went. I mean, as a guy who, sometimes needs to use the restroom, I feel Loopy. That would be a struggle for me. So, maybe that's why Palastri had so much success in round 3, and maybe it wasn't the best bet, but plus 195, I can't be too mad at myself. And then Hubbard plus 136 for 1 unit. That was a good bet in my opinion. He made a mistake in the 3rd round, ultimately cost us, but I think him at plus money was the side. I still think so, even though that lost. Then I had the parlay with Martinez and Shirez. My parlays rarely ever look like value, and that parlay did look like value. Both of them rolled. Both of them won very dominantly. Won a unit there. I had Martinez round 3 for 0.2 units at plus 800. Obviously, we got nowhere near there. And then, but I understand where I was coming from there. And then Morales sub round 3. I posted on my Twitter. This guy, he'll get the subs just tight enough where I'm going to convince myself the next time he fights that he's going to get it, but never tight enough to actually finish. And for a second there, I really thought I was about to finally cash a Morales sub prop. I was about to cash a plus 4,500 on round 3, and it didn't come through. The second I saw him adjust at that last second, I was like, damn it. And that was done. So we lost 2 units there. It is what it is, and we move on. Hopefully we can do better this week. So now let me pull up the card. Let me catch up with the chat because I see some other fellas in here. JB, what's up, Jewish Better? My guy. Good to see you, brother. Make sure you guys are checking out his content. He's got a great show going on weekly. Dravi, my guy. Make sure you guys are checking out Dravi as well. Very sharp fella. And has a very dope podcast, the Beat the Line broadcast. I believe they're going live tomorrow. Him, Key 3, Pegasus, a bunch of dope dudes. Make sure you check them out. And all right, let's pull up the fights and let's talk about it. How about that? All right, let's do it. No spoilers, dude. No spoilers. All right. First fight of the night, we've got Loma Lookboonmee versus Istela Nunes. Loma, she's going to be 9-3-0, 29-5-1 with the 61-inch reach. Nunes 6-5-0. She's lost every single fight in the UFC. She's 32 years old. She's 3 years older. She's going to be 3 inches taller, and she's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. Embarrassingly enough, I thought Nunes was going to be something when she entered the UFC. She was one of my dark horses in terms of debutantes. I thought that she could win a ton of fights at the weight class, and that has not worked out for her at all. She lost to Carnelossi in the 3rd, then she lost to Sam Hughes, and after that, it just went downhill. And I think the most recent one was the Dudakova injury where, you know, it's not her fault, of course, but to an extent, it kind of is her fault. Like, as someone who grappled all my life, I did judo / sambo for many years, and then I did wrestling in high school. The first thing they teach you is when you do any kind of grappling, at least in my experience, is how to fall. And the one thing they teach you is you never fall by sticking your arm out, because that's how you break your arm. So there's a specific way to fall to stop the risk of injuries, or you lower the risk of injuries. You can't stop them. And the number one rule is you don't stick your arm out. And that's what she did. And she broke her arm or whatever it was. And you know, it's not her fault, but it also kind of is. That's like a very basic thing in grappling. I understand maybe in MMA it's harder because you're also worrying about other things like punches, but that's my point. Anyways, yeah, I'm not going to waste a ton of time here. Loma should win. Loma should be able to, you know, in terms of the striking, I think Istela is a better striker. I think she's a better range striker, at least. When we're talking closer, like boxing range, yeah, Loma's got good hands. Loma's good in the clinch. Loma does have good kicks at range as well, but I don't think that's like, that alone is enough, and her reach is just a little bit too short to be throwing long combos. So, but her hands are fast, and she does have nice combinations. She's a good striker, of course. She's a Muay Thai base. Since she got to the UFC, she's developed her grappling. Grappling is a thing she does now. She does trips, mostly trips, throws. You'll see an occasional like single leg. That's about it in terms of the grappling, but she gets them and it works for her. She has solid control, was able to sub Elise Reed, which means absolutely 0 to me because she has no ground game, and I never rated Elise Reed to begin with. But she's a good fighter. She's 29. She's still going to be improving. She's at Syndicate. That's a great camp for her. So overall, yeah, I think she should win because Nunes, what are her deficiencies? Her takedown defense. Honestly, I think her takedown defense is being a little bit overblown. I actually don't think it's that bad. You watch and you look at what she's doing. She's doing the right thing. She's using underhooks. She's posting up, good hips, looking for hand control. Overall, I wouldn't say her takedown defense is that bad. It's just when she's on her back, she struggles a little bit. And once she gets tired, it gets a lot easier to take her down. That's the thing with her. I just think the line's nuts because is this fight going to be that much different from the Bruna Brazil fight? Like, I feel like Istela Nunes is maybe a little bit worse than Bruna, but very similar skill sets, and she's a good striker. And early, I don't think this is going to look minus 700 at all. Early, I think Istela is very live to win the first round. Like I said, I think she's the better striker, at least at range, and this is going to be at range for a decent portion, at least in the first round. And I just think that in terms of just range striking, Istela is better than Loma. I think low-key, she might even hit a little bit harder than Loma. Dropped Uregi. That doesn't mean a ton. Uregi's a little bit chinny, but still, Uregi's a good fighter, and she caught her nice, and she did pretty well there until she got caught in her own right, of course. But I do think she's very live to win that first, and I think she can possibly win the second. The problem with Loma is like a few things. First of all, she doesn't really have much power, so she's not really winning moments. And the way the judges are these days, it's very funky with that kind of thing. And the other thing is sometimes she's very low output and she's not really pushing the issue. She didn't really push the issue against Bruna Brazil. Bruna Brazil, she lost 29-28, but she won a round. One of them was like a second round on one judge's scorecard, and another one was a third. And it's just, in my opinion, it's because Loma's not separating. So I think the line's crazy. Long story short, I don't have the balls to go Nunes money line just because I feel like she probably loses. And, to me, a win for her looks like not dominating, but looking really good for 7.5 minutes and then just holding on for dear life. And it's possible. It's possible. And at plus, what is it, 500 now, 450? 500, you could do a lot worse, but this might be the first time this year that I play a spread. I haven't hit a spread yet this year. I haven't played any. I've been very, very careful with spreads because I learned my lesson in 2023. Going into 2024, that was the number one thing I talked about, and I talked about it all of last year, is you never play a spread at chalk because no matter how good your read is, you can still get screwed by bad judging. And the only way I would do it is if it's plus money, never at chalk. We're getting pretty good plus money on the spread here. I bet online plus 195. I'm going to wait and see what happens on DraftKings. If I make the bet, it'll be posted on my Discord. Subscribe through Dub Club, pull up, hit me up for the promo code. But as of now, that's the way I'm looking. I'm thinking maybe Nunes spread. I'm sure there's value on the money line. I just feel like she probably loses. So I don't really want to do that. I'd rather go with the spread if it's decent plus money, and it is. So that's the way I'm looking at it. Line's kind of crazy, but Loma's the better mixed martial artist if we're being real. But I will say Nunes is at American Top Team. I know it says American Top Team Brazil, but I'm pretty sure she's at the real one now. And she looks pretty good. She looks very physical, very ripped. So who knows going into this fight? All I can say is don't parlay Loma money line. That's nuts. And before we move on, let's see. Champ saying Loma should win this, but odds are nasty. Nunes isn't that bad. She's not bad. She just has bad cardio. JB saying Nunes' ability to throw kicks in this fight might be limited. Yeah, because Loma can catch them. Yeah, that's fair. But does she really need kicks to win a round? Her hands are good. I like her hands. Meatball in the chat. What's up, Meatball? This might be the first time I'm seeing you in here. Half the battle. Thank you, brother. Make sure you guys listen to Dan. Smash the like button. Really, really helps. Like, comment. Comments really help too. Likes help. Subscribers help the most. And if you're on Twitter, you guys stink. You guys never like the videos. You guys are getting better at it. But I usually have more Twitter viewers than YouTube viewers. On Twitter, you guys don't have no ads. I'm not getting any money from you. The least you can do is like the video, comment, because commenting really helps on Twitter, and, retweet. If you're watching it, you like me to an extent, or you hate me and you like to watch me fail. Either way, you should be retweeting me, and that would be very helpful. So listen to Dan, and make sure you guys check out his own podcast because he's got a great show, always has great guests. He's super sharp. He's been ripping it with the underdogs. So make sure you guys are checking Dan out. And let's see what else we got going on. JB talking about the kicks and our combinations. Yeah, the grappling's a deficiency for sure. And Champ saying the spread is a good look. Thank you. I think so too. All right, moving on. We've got Vanessa Demopoulos versus Talita Alencar. Demopoulos 11-6-0, 36, 5'2" with a 59-inch reach. Alencar 5'1" 34. She's 2 years younger. She's going to be 1 inch shorter, and she's going to be at a 1 inch reach disadvantage. I like Alencar to win. I briefly considered betting -110. But if I bet Alencar and she gets a bunch of takedowns, clearly wins the first 2 rounds, slows down, Vanessa has good moments on the feet, takes the third, and the judges give Vanessa another close split, I might have to retire completely, and I don't want to retire. So I'm probably not going to bet on this fight. I think I'm going to pass unless Alencar goes back to plus money. But I think that Alencar is just a better fighter. Overall, better grappler. I guess you can really argue that better fighter comment because her cardio is not the best. Vanessa does have good cardio. Vanessa does have good output on the feet. Vanessa is a decent striker. I don't think she's a good striker by any means, but she's a decent striker. She's probably a better striker than Alencar. I just don't think it's a huge gap. And I think at the end of the day, Demopoulos is her takedown defense is not good. In fights where she beat wrestlers like Jin Yufrey, Jin didn't wrestle. Jin shot 1 time. And that was one of the biggest issues with her career, was she was a grappler who refused to grapple. Alencar's going to grapple. Alencar's going to wrestle. She's a little bit like kind of like a lesser version of what's her name? Jacqueline Amorim. I don't think she's as aggressive on the ground. I don't think she's as slick with the submissions, but she's also a really good grappler. Once she can get the fight on the mat, she's relatively dangerous. The jiu-jitsu is good to the point where she can at least control her opponents and threaten the subs to win minutes, to win moments. And I think that the grappling will get the job done for her. I don't necessarily think she's going to sub Vanessa, but I think she's just going to take her down and control her and win the fight via decision, a boring one. But I can't really do it at minus 110 when Vanessa's probably, like I said, Vanessa's going to be the better striker. Even if she's not, Vanessa will throw a lot more. Her output is good on the feet, and she does try. And for some reason, the judges in Vegas love her. So I'm going to stay away, but Alencar is the pick for me here. Let's see what we got going on here. Henry 88 Sugar. What's up, Henry? Saying, please tell us the method you like. For what fight? I don't like any methods. I'm passing so far. Champ saying he has zero trust for Alencar to take Demo down and have judges look at her and think she's doing. Yeah. I mean, they tell us that judges look for damage over control, but is that even how they do it these days? You never know. That's my thing with spreads at chalk, right? You just never. We know what the judging is supposed to be, but do the judges listen to it? No. Some judges go in there and they still value control over damage, and some don't. But moving on. We've got Victor Henry versus Pedro Falcao. Henry, he's going to be 24-7-0. He's 37, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. Falcao, 16-4-0. He's 32, so he's 5 years younger. He's going to be 1 inch shorter, and he's going to be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Tricky. I feel like if Henry pulls up and is himself the Henry that he usually is, he should win this fight. I think he's a better mixed martial artist. He's the guy who's more well-rounded. His takedown defense is very good. His scrambling is very good. He's the better striker. He's got phenomenal output, and he's got very good cardio. But we've seen him fumble. You can argue that Assunção has a similar style to Pedro here, and Assunção was already pretty old in that fight when he beat Henry. You know, kind of a low output, but a good striker with good grappling, and that's how he won that fight. Put Henry on the back foot a little bit, did good work on the feet, and mixed in some takedowns to solidify the rounds. And you can make the argument that Pedro could probably do that too. You know, you look at him against Hugo Silva, that was a weird fight. To this day, I still don't know how. Like, I still don't know if Hugo or Victor Silva, whatever his real name is, I don't know if he's actually any good. He seems decent, but I have a hard time reading him. So I don't really know what to rate there, because to me, there were a few good things in that fight and there were a few bad things in that fight. The good thing was that no matter what happened, even though he wasn't really getting the takedowns, he was always going for it. He was always the one moving forward. He was always the one shooting, and he was always trying, and he was able to shoot at least like it was like 10 times. He only got one, I think, but he shot like 10 times. He didn't really get tired. He kept moving forward, and that's a good look for the judges often. You know, that'll win you some points on the scorecards. His striking's fine. I don't really see anything standing out there. That was kind of the problem with the performance in his last fight, where he doesn't seem to have a plan B, and that's kind of my problem with him. The grappling and everything, it's great. It's great that you're a decent wrestler. It's great that you have the cardio to shoot 10 times. It's great that you don't give up. It's great that you have really good jiu-jitsu, but what happens if your game plan's not working? What are you going to do? He doesn't really have that plan B. His striking's fine, but it's not that good. There's not much substance to it. And over 15 minutes, I'm not seeing many people that he's beating on the feet over 15 minutes in the UFC. I just don't think there's many. I don't think his striking is that great. I think Henry's a good striker. He's really good at angling off. His combinations are nice. I think that he should be the way better striker here. And if he can keep it on the feet, he should probably roll. Yeah, he's going to have to defend a lot if Falcao fights like he did last time. Henry will have to defend a lot. He will have to scramble and work his way back up. But that's something we've seen him do time and time again against really good grapplers. So I feel like he's probably going to be okay. But the problem is, can you lay minus 200 on a guy who's 37, on a guy who's very inconsistent, and on a guy who we've seen struggle with this kind of archetype, on a guy who maybe isn't the best off of his back foot if you're pressuring him and mixing in a lot of takedowns? He did deal with Gravely pretty well, in my opinion. And I do lean towards his way. I'm picking Victor Henry to win. I'm picking him to win by decision. I thought about betting the decision, but Pedro's pretty good too. And I don't want to take the risk. I feel like it's not that great of a bet who knows how it looks afterwards, but I think it's probably just a pass. I'm thinking about maybe parlaying the over 2.5, but I don't know with what yet. I don't really think a finish happens here, but we'll see. I'm going to pick Henry to win, and we can move on. For this next one, we got Rhys McKee versus Daniel Frunza. McKee, 13-6-1. He's 29 years old, 6'2" with a 78-inch reach. Frunza, 9-2-0, 30 years old. He's 1 year older. He's going to be 1 inch shorter, and he's going to have a 5-inch reach disadvantage. So for me here, it's kind of a funky fight. I liked Frunza a lot in the Contender Series. That was probably the best bet I made last season, was him over that guy. I forget his name. He's just a gassy fella. But it's just crazy to me. I remember when McKee made his debut in 2020 against Hamzat. I even bet him there. I threw like a quarter unit or something on him against Hamzat because I was just like, who knows? But I thought McKee would at least be a middle-of-the-road UFC guy with some wins. But he doesn't have a single UFC win, which is just nuts to me. But in this matchup, he is taking a step down, and everybody he's lost to in the UFC is good. He's losing to solid dudes. He lost to Chitty, he's a good fighter. He lost to Angelusa, he's a good fighter. He lost to Hamzat, he's a very good fighter, and he lost to 2020 Morono. And while I love to hate on Morono, and I've never been high on him, if we're being real here, 2020 Morono was a solid fighter, and to lose to him is fine. I don't think he's lost to anybody terribly, and he hasn't really been completely dominated by anyone outside of Hamzat. I mean, he hasn't necessarily fought that close either in some of these fights, but my point is he's not really losing to anyone bad. Not to say Frunza's bad, but I think both of them are just very similar. Both, like, everybody talks about McKee being a punching bag, but Frunza's a punching bag too. They have the same exact style. Neither of them really has a ton of power. They're attritional finishers who finish guys by putting them on their back foot, throwing a ton of output, and just going, and having good cardio. And that's how they beat guys. How it's going to play out when they're both this kind of similar to me, I'm not really positive. I think the value's on McKee. He's fought the higher level of competition. He's not the one making his debut. He's the underdog. He's the one with the reach advantage. He's probably going to have an easier time at range. And I frankly, I think he's a better striker too. I don't think Frunza's anything tremendously special for talking skill-wise. I think that Frunza's a fine striker. He mixes it up well. He goes to the body well. He's very good at just moving forward, and tiring people out. But again, that's kind of what McKee is good at too. So for me, this is a major dog or pass. In terms of who I'm going to pick, I don't really know. I've been going back and forth. I'm not confident at all. I think it's a pick 'em, which would make you think that McKee's a bet. I haven't done it yet because I'm kind of being a little bit of a chicken. Kind of want a better line. I feel like he's just really hittable. And would I be shocked if Frunza ended up hurting him a few times and just winning based off moments? No, I wouldn't. But I can see McKee also just being a cleaner striker, taking the shots because he is very durable and landing his own, and this being a close fight and him winning with having just cleaner shots on the feet and maybe higher output. But I can also see him mixing in some takedowns maybe. He's not like an elite wrestler by any means. And Frunza, I would say that Frunza's initial takedown defense, his hips, his reactions are really good. You see, like on the Contender Series, he reacts immediately to that shot attempt, gets out of there. The hips are very good. The hand control is there. But I think you can take him down. Last time he lost, I'm pretty sure that was the last time he lost. He got subbed by Gary Boletto Jr., a guy who's actually pretty good on the regionals and who might eventually make it to the UFC. I don't think he's too old. He's like 28 or 29, I think Gary is. Maybe 30. But that kind of showed me, because Gary subbed him with no hooks. So to me, that suggests at least a slight deficiency in the jiu-jitsu department. And while McKee's not really out here subbing a ton of people, he's a decent grappler. He does have a decent back take. He's got decent wrestling. And I put the grappling department in his favor. So if we're breaking it down piece by piece, striking, I think McKee's a little bit better. I think Frunza hits a little bit harder. I think Frunza's maybe a little bit less hittable. I think McKee's got the wrestling upside, the submission upside, and then pace. They both have good pace. They both have good cardio. So I don't really know. I'll pick Frunza, I guess, but it's dog or pass for me. I haven't played the dog yet, but I am thinking about it. Let's see what we got going on in the chat. Kiwi, what's up, Kiwi? Good to see you. Drug test the judges, not the fighters. I'm with you. Leave the fighters alone. Let them take all the steroids. Let's see what happens. But the judges, drug test those people. Henry's taking. He's talking about the Henry fight. Yeah, I agree, but you got to pass at those odds. JB also talking about the Henry fight. He's wondering if the fall off is here. Yeah, I don't know, man. Well, I guess we'll see. Kutsi, that's the guy Frunza was beating up on. Michael, what's up, Michael? Good to see you, brother. This reminds me a bit of McKee versus Burlinson again. How so? Frunza's a little bit different than Burlinson, I would say. No, don't do that, biker boy. Don't do that. She's minus 1,000. What value are you like? What are you getting out of it? Your parlay goes from plus 110 to plus 112. There's no point. Feel like Rhys is live to win. Not super impressed. Yeah, it's dogger pass for me. I really do think Rhys can do it. It's just it's hard to kind of break that thing where you've lost 4 or 5 times in the UFC now. It's tough to get behind him, but I think this is a winnable fight for Rhys. All right, moving on. We've got Dione Barbosa versus Diana Belbita. Barbosa 7-3-0. She's 32. She's 5'6" with a 66-inch reach. Belbita 15-9-0. She's 29, so she's going to be 3 years younger. It says she's 28. I saw 29. Okay, 28. She's 4 years younger. She's going to be 1 inch taller, and she's going to have a 1.5 inch reach advantage. So, look, Barbosa's minus 1,000. Does that make sense? Not really. Not really, no. But I understand why. And I understand why she's the favorite. I think she's the rightful favorite. There's a tremendous grappling upside here. She's a jiu-jitsu black belt, I think. She's a judo black belt. And Belbita's been armbarred 2 times. Liana Joa armbarring you is a terrible, terrible look. Molly McCann armbarring you, I don't think is the worst look, but I'm pretty sure that's Molly's only submission win ever. And now Molly's retired. So I get why people are, I get the narrative. I mean, just look at the props. They opened them up today. The under is like minus 140. Barbosa sub is plus 125. When was the last time we saw lines like this at flyweight? Oh, I thought this was at strawweight. That's my bad. But regardless, even at flyweight, when do we see these odds? So rarely. And I just think everybody is assuming Barbosa is going to come out here, judo throw Belbita, armbar in the first. And they might not be wrong. It's possible. It's decent likelihood, but it's just like, it's hard for me to look at the over 2.5 at minus at pick'em at women's strawweight and be like, or women's flyweight, sorry, and be like, there's no value here. I feel like there might be. Barbosa's not subbing everybody she fights. She subbed Rain Guerrero on the Contender Series after, she didn't necessarily look all that great up until that point. And then she has subs over much, much lower level competition earlier on in her career, and that's it. Now, the people she's fighting are pretty good grapplers outside of Ernesto Carrasquete, who I think is actually a pretty good comparison for Belbita. Ernesta's probably got a higher ceiling. Not probably. I'm pretty confident that she has a higher ceiling than Belbita. But their styles are very similar. They're both lanky strikers who are good at range, throw very high output, don't really slow down, and aren't necessarily great grapplers. And Carrasquete made a lot of mistakes in that fight. She made a lot of errors, and she did not get submitted. She was able to fight out of it, which makes me just wonder, like, are we sure that Belbita can't fight out of these subs? Are we sure that Belbita can't go all 15? I don't know. I feel like it's just not worth my money to go and stress about this and play the over. And then Barbosa does come out there and get the first round sub. And I'm certainly not going to go for the unders or the submission. I just think there's no value there. I think the bookies are on it. Everybody's on the same page here. Barbosa probably just out grapples her. And even on the feet, I do think Belbita's a better striker. I'll be honest there. I think she's a better striker at range, especially. She's good. Like, she's a good striker. I was surprised at how long my notes were for her striking. Like, she's got a good jab with some substance to it. She follows it up well. Got solid combinations. The kicks are good. The leg kicks are good. She doesn't have a lot of power, but she throws a lot of output. And I do think she's a better striker, but Barbosa, good leg kicks also. That's going to be a good weapon on somebody lanky like Belbita. Beat up those legs, make her uncomfortable, and then go for your throws, your trips. should help a lot. And Barbosa also seems to low-key hit pretty hard. She hurt Karaskete, I think, in the second round. And Belbita seems a little bit fragile, so I could see maybe Barbosa also hurting her. So, yeah, long story short, Barbosa should win this fight. She's the rightful favorite. Minus 1,000 is crazy, but I don't have the balls to do anything about it. All right, let's see what the chat is saying, and then we'll move on. Champ saying Dione should steamroll. Don't like Belbita at 125. Yeah. She's probably going to get subbed. Probably. It's just like everyone is on it. Everyone's on the under. Everyone's on the sub. What could go wrong? Moving on, we got Davey Grant versus Daniel Santos. Grant, he's going to be 14-7-0, 39 years old, 5'8" with a 69-inch reach. Santos, he's going to be 11-2-0. He's 30, so he's 9 years younger. He's going to be 1 inch shorter, and he's going to be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage. So I've been trying to figure out what the hell happened to Santos. Why has he been out for... Oh, let me pause. Meatball, this is kind of the one angle I was thinking about, right? First off, I mentioned in my breakdown briefly that Barbosa low-key hits hard. And Belbita is a little fragile. But also, if we're so convinced, right? If we're 100% convinced to the point where Barbosa is a minus 1,000, that she's going to have a huge grappling advantage, right? Is it completely out of the realm of possibility that she takes the back and just TKOs her with ground and pound? Probably not, right? If we're that certain she's that dominant. And her KO is plus 1,000. Subs plus 125. KO is plus 1,000. So that is something I've been looking at, something I actually mentioned earlier in one of the Discords I'm in. And I'm glad you brought that up. But going back to this fight. So I'm trying to figure out what happened to Santos. He pulled out of a few fights. He's been out almost 2 years now. And at 20, so last time he fought, he was 28. Now he's 30. 28 to 30, a 2-year layoff. It depends on the reason, right? I don't hate that because at 28 to 30, you can see a pretty big improvement coming back. And at Shootbox, he's at a good camp. He's got good training partners. So he could come back looking real good. But if it's injuries and stuff, then that's, a little less tempting because Davey's 39. That's a red flag in my books at bantamweight for sure. In my notes under red flags, that's what I got. Davey Grant's 39 years old as a bantamweight. He's taken a ton of damage at this point of his career, but he doesn't fight very often because he's got his own business going. He's I believe he's successful there. So he fights when he has to. And, he gets these wins. He's not pushing himself like too hard. So he's doing okay still. I would like to know what's going on with Santos, what's up with him, why he's been out. But going into this fight, I kind of thought that I would like Davey at plus money because he's fought similar styles and he's had success, right? So Ramon Tavares, aggressive forward pressure striker, beat him pretty well. Marcos, guy everybody's high on, who's very good, clearly, striker, forward pressure guy. Davey Grant, in my opinion, beat him. I think in almost everybody's opinion, he won that fight. He got robbed. And I just thought that this is the kind of fight where, again, Davey Grant's being a little undervalued because he's old, but he can win. And I do think he can win. I do think he can win. Maybe a knockout. Santos, he got hurt by that Castaneda head kick. Grant's got nice kicks. He threw a ton of them in his last fight. And I do really like how Davey targets all targets, right? He goes for the legs, he goes for the body, he goes for the head almost equally. And that's a really good thing. That's something I like a lot when I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to bet on a fighter or not. And he's a good striker. He's very unorthodox. He comes from weird angles with the hands, a little bit wide and loopy, which can be a problem if he's fighting somebody who's throwing straight. But overall, I really like Davey's game. Takedown defense is fine, decent. He's dangerous off of his back, though. He can occasionally wrestle. But I kind of feel like I think the pressure of Santos is going to be the difference maker here. Because you look at the Tavares fight, and what did Tavares do that's not really what he normally does? He didn't really pressure. He didn't really put Davey on the back foot. He didn't really... He just didn't really seem like he was going for it. And Santos is a guy who's going to go for it. He's like a classic shootbox guy, zero defense, moving forward constantly, good hands, good grappling, well-rounded, and just very, very aggressive. And when Davey does get put on the back foot, we've seen him struggle beforehand. We've seen him slow down, even if you go back to like the Smoka fight, he slowed down in that fight. It's when he's able to have his space, when he's able to move laterally, when he's able to mix it all together. That's when he's having success. But Santos isn't going to get out of his face. He's going to be going forward, always throwing something. He hits hard in his own right. He's a good striker. I think Davey's I prefer Davey striking because he mixes it up so well. I really love how he goes to the body and the legs just as much as he goes upstairs. But I just think that Santos is going to be a comparable striker, but he's going to be the one putting Davey on the back foot. He's the younger guy. He's the fresher guy. Despite his defense, he's the guy who's taking less damage. And I think he's the guy who has the potential to actually get takedowns and win some minutes and some moments that way through the grappling. So for me, I like Santos here. I think Santos is going to win. I think he's the rightful favorite. I'm not really dying to play him. I know some folks are really excited about playing him. They really want to hit that money line, and I don't blame them. I can understand it. I know some other people on Davey Grant. I can also understand that. And if I'm being real, I'd be down to play either guy at the right line. Like if the line got really, really wide, I'd be open to a Davey Grant play because he does have a lot of power. He is still a good striker. He's still a good fighter. He hasn't diminished that much at this age. And maybe he could hit a knockout here. But if the line got tight enough where Santos was closer to maybe, I don't know. Again, I'm not a numbers guy. I need to pull up my odds calculator. I'm not going to do that right now. But something like Santos minus, I don't know, 130 could get me going. I'd be possibly down for that. I think it's a close fight. I can understand both sides. For me, I think it's best to just pass and just see what's up. Why has Santos been gone so long? Is Davey still holding up at 39? Those are my questions, and that's why I'm going to personally pass, but it's a good fight, and I can understand the arguments for both sides 100%. Here, before we move on, let me catch up with the chat. Let's see. Pepe, what's up, Pepe? Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you guys are checking my guy out on Twitter. Super sharp dude, one of the best in the game, and McKee did ship it for us, came through clutch, and saved me from a disaster, pretty much. Champ saying he doesn't know who wins. There's good cases for both. Agreed there. Yeah. Oh, you think under at plus money is the way. Interesting. Probably. Probably, but you guys know me. Like, when I look at fights like this that will go to war, sometimes I tend to lean towards the over, and I do lean towards the over, but I don't want to play it because it's usually in angles like that when I'm targeting it, it's plus money, and it's not plus money. It's minus 180, minus 155 for the fight goes. So, yeah, I can understand going under, but me personally, I'm good. Dogfather in here trying to be contrarian. Marco's fight wasn't a robbery. Okay, dog. I like to mess with him. All right. Gabrielle is saying it's Davey's restaurant. Oh, that sucks to hear. Hope he's doing good anyway. All right, moving on. We got Luis Gurule versus Ode Osbourne. Gurule, 10-0, undefeated, 31 years old, 5'5" with a 64-inch reach. Ode, 12-8-0, 33. He's 2 years older, 2 inches taller, and he's going to have a 9-inch reach advantage. So going into this fight, I was pretty convinced I would have a parlay with Gurule in it. I even had the parlay loaded up as I was taping it, ready to just press that click. And I couldn't get there. And I'll explain why. I do think he wins. I do think he wins off of pace, pressure, output, better cardio. And I just don't think Ode's a great minute winner. But Ode struggles the most with grapplers. That's always been a thing. That's what we know now, especially. He struggles if you can grapple. He struggles if you have a good submission grappling game. And that's not Gurule. Gurule doesn't wrestle in almost any of his fights. He very rarely wrestles. Maybe if you go way back, but not often. He's not really mixing in the takedowns offensively. Defensively, he's doing a great job. In the Piccinini fight, I had over 2 units on Piccinini, I think. Piccinini did a really good job at taking him down, but Gurule did a really good job at stuffing a lot of the other attempts. And when he did get taken down, he scrambled right back up, and he was able to win off of damage, off of strikes landed. But he doesn't use it offensively, and that's kind of Ode's weakness. And if we're just talking striking here, if we're going 15 minutes striking, Ode's a better striker, I think. I think Ode's a better striker. I think Ode's better at range. I think Ode hits harder, and I think Ode is faster. He's got a 9-inch reach advantage, and if he's using lateral movement, Gurule is a guy who's always moving forward. Ode can 100% jab 1-2, move, jab 1-2, move, kick, jab 1-2, move. That's something I can see 100%. My problem is just that Ode can't really keep that going for 15 minutes. We saw him kind of do it against Charles Johnson, and there was some wrestling mixed in that fight. He probably didn't even deserve that decision, but that was a decent win. And that kind of showed me that he could win this fight. Like, if Gurule is not going to at least try to wrestle, and that's not really something I've seen from his game, so I can't really assume that he's going to. If he's just going to do what he normally does and pressure, and just go for it, I could see Ode knocking him down. I could see Ode knocking him out. Jacob Silva hurt him in their fight. I think early he hurt him. I don't see why Ode can't. I would not be shocked if Ode put him out. I would not be shocked if Ode won rounds just off of hurting him. So, and I can also see Ode just winning the first 2 rounds off of the striking. I don't think that's out of the question either. Now, I think more likely than not, the constant pressure of Luis Gurule is just going to be too much, and Ode is going to start to crack because outside of the grappling, I think he also struggles with forward pressure. He's one of these long ranger guys who needs his space, so he's going to struggle with pressure. And he's also doesn't have the best cardio. He's not the best nail. When he handles a lot of adversity, he tends to wilt a little bit. And Gurule is kind of the opposite, and he's the guy who you can tell that he trains with Brandon Royval. Now, I know it says Factory X. I'm pretty sure that he did leave that gym with Brandon. I don't know what drama happened there, but I know that a lot of fighters left. I know he's with Royval now. I think they're somewhere else. I forget the name of the camp off the top of my head. But he's a good training partner, and you can tell that he trains with him. He's a guy who puts it all out there. He's got that dog in him. He's got the cardio. He's relentless. So I think that skill for skill, Ode low-key might be the better guy because I think he's a better striker. He's got more power. He's faster. But he's also, like, if we're talking pure submissions, Ode's kind of slick with the jiu-jitsu too. Like, Gurule is not an amazing grappler. So skill for skill, I feel like Ode's a better guy. And Gurule is also making his debut. But ultimately, I think Gurule is just going to get it done anyways. I think it's one of those spots where he's just going to keep moving forward. He's going to land his shots. He's going to put Ode's back against the fence. And he might eventually break him. The way I'm looking to target this fight, I mean, there's a few ways, mostly counter violence. I don't want to give away too much, but I'm mostly looking at counter violence. I'm looking at maybe late Gurule stuff. We'll see exactly what I do. Like I always say, recently at least, it's all behind a paywall now, Dub Club. Make sure you check it out. Links in the description of this video and all my bios and everything. And you can just hit me up. I'll send you the link and I'll give you a promo code as well. And you can get all my bets, my notes, my breakdowns, all that good stuff. But yeah, Gurule will be the pick and we can move on. Before we go, let's see what we got going on in the chat. Pepe saying smoking on that Grant pack this week. I didn't realize you were on Davey, Pepe. Champ saying he likes Gurule. If Ode doesn't chin him, Gurule's going to... Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, kind of. 6-Town, what's up, 6-Town? Good to see you, brother. Lazy Fight didn't age too... That was kind of crazy. He follows such a bad game plan, though. Ode finish only is not bad. Only thing is, it would suck if, like, it's looking good. Ode starts to lose, and you're like, oh, at least I had the finish only. And then he wilts, and... Gurule gets him out of there in the third. That's the only reason that I would be kind of like, eh. But moving on. We've got Robert Valentin versus Torrez Finney. Valentin 10-4-0. He's 30 years old, 6'2" with a 77-inch reach. Finney 10-0 undefeated. He's 26. He's 4 years younger. He's going to be, oh boy. Let me do math real quick, guys. You got to bear with me. 6 inches shorter, and he's given up 2 inches in reach. So, this is so tricky for me. It's quite tricky. Part of the problem, and I've learned this now that I've done a decent amount of interviews. I haven't in a while, but I've done a lot of interviews. Not a lot. I've done a decent amount of interviews. And when it comes time for guys to fight, when you think they're going to win, it's great. You're like, oh, I interviewed this guy. He's going to win. Like, it's all good. When you think they might lose, it gets real awkward, especially if like you still like to reach out to them sometimes and it's somebody you don't necessarily want to burn a relationship with. And it gets tricky. And I'm also just biased towards Finney because I love the guy. I love that he's just this dude who Dana can't stand for some reason. He won his first fight in the Contender Series, came back, won again, still got denied, came back, got it done again. He won in 3 different ways on the Contender Series: decision, submission, and knockout. Got himself into the UFC despite everything everybody was saying. I want to root for him, and I don't want to bet against him. But sometimes, you got to put your bias aside. Now, I don't think this is necessarily the spot where I need to put my bias aside. I think that Valentin is live. I think that at this current line, it's dog or past 100%. But I don't think I'm going to make the play personally, because not just because of the bias, but also because I really wanted to convince myself that Valentin only struggled with Loader because Loader's a really high-level wrestler, but this dude's getting taken down all the damn time. And yes, his sweeps are good. Yes, his scrambling is good. Yes, he throws up submissions, and he's throwing up elbows, and he's making it hard for the person controlling him to control them. Yeah, he took Loader's back. That's all good. But at the end of the day, he does get stuck, and he does get controlled, and his takedown defense is not good. And as he slows down, that gets worse and worse. And in the first round, I think he's going to put up a hell of a fight. And I think that he's incredibly likely to win the first round, if not finish in the first. But as the fight goes on, I think Finney's going to take over. Finney's got really good cardio. He doesn't stop at all. And he does have good wrestling. He's not of the level of caliber of Loader. He's a 2-time state champ, but he is a good wrestler. He's very short and stocky, so good luck when you're 6'2" and this dude's 5'8". Good luck stopping him from getting to your legs, because he's at the level of your waist. So he doesn't have to change levels. Usually you look at guys who are fighting, they have to change levels when you wrestle, even outside of MMA. You change levels, then you shoot, right? And in MMA, you have to set it up with your hands. When you wrestle, you got to work with the hands. You got to move their hands away. You got to be setting it up, and then you shoot. You change levels, and you shoot. If Finney doesn't have to change levels, Finney just has to explode forwards. That's all he's got to do against guys like this, because he's that short, but he's very stocky and strong. I think he's going to get the takedowns. And then when he's on top, I don't think his control's the best, but it does seem to be getting better and better, and he is only 26. And I did like what I saw in that last fight. I know that last guy he fought, Lerone, something like that. He's a striker, so he's not a great grappler at all. But it was good to see Finney grabbing those wrists. Wrist control was on point. Made it very hard for him to get out from underneath him. The transitions were nice. He was able to go into full mount and then go from there. And I just think in general, he's probably just going to take Valentin down over and over again. And Valentin's going to make it really dicey in the first, but then he's going to start to gas. And then Finney's just going to start beating on him. And maybe Finney wins by decision. Maybe Finney wins by a later finish by Valentin wilting. I considered like a Finney play or like an overplay, because the overs are plus money. And I can 100% see Finney just laying on him, similar like he did in the Cam Rouston fight. And I did play the decision in the Cam Rouston fight at like plus 300 or something. But the difference between someone like Cam Rouston and Valentin is I feel like Valentin might flake. And Rouston doesn't really flake. He's actually pretty good. He's underrated, but Valentin does flake. So that's a concern. But I also think that Valentin might knock Finney out on the feet in the first. And that's something I kind of am considering. I mean, it's like plus 1,600 on Bet Online. Domestics are probably going to give you something better. And while I love Finney and I love the work ethic and the cardio and the wrestling is good and the control is solid and the ground game's getting better and better, his striking is not very good at all. I mean, he's got a jab and an overhand, and that's about it. And maybe it'll develop, but his figure is also so awkward that I don't even know how it works. And I just don't really rate his striking super highly. I worry about his chin. I worry about his durability. I worry about how hittable he is. And Valentin does hit really, really hard. He's a really dangerous dude standing. I think the submission's favored, but I don't really think he subs Finney. I think if he finishes Finney, he knocks him out. So the way I would target it if I did play something would probably be like a Valentin round 1 knockout. I kind of like those prices, but I'm going to pass. I'm biased. I like Finney, so I'm just going to pass. But in terms of a pick, I think he wins, and I guess he wins by decision. Let's see what we got going on in the chat. 6-Hound bringing up the undefeated fighters thing. That's true. That's true. And this is definitely a spot where that O could go. Champ saying Valentin's live. He's very dangerous, can cause problems, even in the grappling. Yeah, he definitely could cause a lot of problems for Finney. Valentin split plus 800. I don't hate that at all. If we're talking damage versus control. Champ saying Valentin finish only at plus money. That's pretty nice too. The spread, yeah, that's not bad either. I just worry about him maybe wilting. And I know my guy Pepe's on he's definitely not on the Finney side. So I'm not surprised there. But I wouldn't say I was glazing him. I think I was what's the word? I was balanced. I would say I was balanced. But all right, moving on. Is this the first fight of the main card? No, it's the second fight of the main card. But regardless, we got 108 people in here. We got 75 on Twitter, 33 on YouTube. And I would bet money that we got more likes on YouTube than we do on Twitter. So if you're watching on Twitter, please, for the love of God, like the video, retweet it, comment, anything. Anything will help. Just do it, please. And if you're on YouTube, you guys are usually really good at this, and I really appreciate you guys for it. But like, comment, subscribe. It's very, very, very helpful to keep the channel going. All right. Next up, we got GM3, Gerald Meerschaert versus Brad Tavares. Meerschaert, 37, 18, and 0. He's 37, 6'1" with a 77-inch reach. On the other side, we got Tavares, 20, 10, and 0. He's 37 as well. I believe, yeah, he's literally 3 days younger than GM3. He's going to be the same height, and he's going to be at a 3-inch reach disadvantage. So pre-tape, I was like, this is obviously a Tavares spot. This is obviously Tavares by decision. Easy. Forget about it. Don't worry about it too much. And then a lot of people were telling me they're on GM3, so I was like, okay, well, I'm excited to tape it then. And then I ended up taping it. And look, I can understand 100% the argument for GM3. And if you made me make a bet on the money line, I would bet him just because he has more ways to win this fight. He could low-key win this on the feet. Tavares is a better striker by a decent margin, in my opinion. And I know people hate on his power recently, but I do still think he hits hard. You know, people are talking about how he got taken down by Park in the 3rd round, and GM3 could do that. But how about the fact that he dropped Park? I don't hear people talking about that. He dropped him in the 1st round. And then there's also a lot of hate on him not finishing Chris Weidman. If we're being real here, like what's GM3 lined against Chris Weidman? Are we sure that he beats Chris Weidman? Like, are we positive? Because I know he's beating a lot of prospects, but it's usually guys who gas. It's usually guys that if you put the pressure on them, they tend to wilt. It's guys who are not good nails at all. And I'm just not positive that he would do much better than Tavares did against Weidman. That's my personal opinion. And if you're going to hate on Tavares because he didn't finish Weidman, I would sit down and think about the fact that would GM3 finish Weidman? Because personally, I don't think so. But I can see the argument because GM3, his striking's not bad. It's gotten a lot better. And when he's moving forward, when he's not the one on the back foot, when he's the one putting his opponents on the back foot, he actually does have a decent amount of success on the feet. And he is probably going to be the guy with the wrestling upside. Not probably. He is the guy with the wrestling upside. He is the guy who's clearly the better submission grappler. If anybody gets a sub in the fight, it's probably going to be GM3. So if I had to make a money line bet, it would be GM3. And I understand why people are doing it. I just don't want to. I think it's better for me to pass. I think if anything, I might as well look at the totals. I don't feel a reason to get involved. I feel like I still lean towards Tavares. I still lean towards Tavares' decision. I know that people are pointing at the Park fight as if that means that he has bad takedown defense, as if Park hasn't been taking down a ton of opponents. That was literally the angle all of you guys who were betting Park were saying, was that Park can also wrestle. And now you guys are just throwing it under the rug. And look, Park took him down. Like, if Park took him down in the 3rd round, fine. But to me, that doesn't mean that he doesn't have good takedown defense anymore. I think his takedown defense is still good. I think he can still stuff most of the takedowns. I don't really rate GM3's wrestling. I know he's at VFS now. It's a great camp. He's training with Bilal. Okay. But it's only going to do so much. I mean, Austin Hubbard trains at VFS too. That didn't guarantee him a win, did it? So, yeah, long story short, I think Tavares gets it done by decision. But I don't have any interest in betting on him, and I don't really have much interest on betting Gerald. I'm fine with just passing in terms of money line. Let's see if there's anything in the chat, and then we'll move on. JB agreeing with Pepe on Grant. It's interesting. Makes sense. Champ saying, I think this is a horrible matchup for GM3. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I don't think it's a horrible matchup for him, considering where they're on in their careers, but I also still think Tavares probably wins. Yeah, Dravi max bet GM3. If I heard him right, I'm pretty sure Dravi has 1,000 units on him, so 10 bankrolls. Pepe, if you're thinking about betting Tavares, haven't even crossed my mind since I taped it. It definitely crossed my mind before I taped it. Putting my life savings on Finney by heel hook. Let me know the odds, and I'm with you, bro. Send our great grandkids to college. All right, moving on. We got Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Martin Buday. Oh boy. Okay, Nzechukwu, 14-5-0, 32 years old, 6'5" with the 83-inch reach. Buday, 14-2-0, 33. He's 1 year older. Not really. He's like, what is that? 6 months older. He's 1 inch shorter, and he's going to be at a 6-inch reach disadvantage. I try to really be respectful on my shows. I try to not hate on any fighter, too much and not really hold grudges. I hate Martin Buday. I hate him. I don't know why. Well, I kind of know why. I'm salty still. I'm salty for my Brzeski loss. And I know it's not even his fault. He came out there. He lost the fight. He did his job. It's the judges who botched it. I thought Brzeski clearly won. I think you have to be blind and watching a different sport at the same time to think that Buday won, or maybe insanely biased. But even the people I know who had money on Buday said he didn't win that fight. And just what does the guy do well? What does he do well? He's a clinch merchant. He's a flat-footed, unathletic clinch merchant who has no power on the feet, is not a good striker. I don't understand where this bizarre narrative came from that he's a good grappler. People have been harping on his grappling for the last 5 fights, and he got 1 submission over Josh Parisian, and everybody's like, see? This dude never wrestles. He almost never wrestles. You do not see him shooting takedowns. He's not good at range. His output is crap. He has 0 urgency. He doesn't have any power. The only thing he does well is clinch. And who is he clinching up and controlling and having good fights against? Jake Collier, who's extremely undersized and still landed 100 significant strikes on him, and freaking Chris Barnett. Chris Barnett is 5'7". And just not, I love the man and he's awesome to watch, but he's not UFC caliber. So what does that do for me? And then he subs Josh Parisian. Great damn job. That means a great amount to me. And then we come out here and he barely beats Arlovsky. He can't even clinch Arlovsky. Arlovsky just keeps circling out of the clinch. The only thing he can do is clinch. That's the only thing. And I heard he's very good at video games. And I say all that, I'm not even high on Kennedy. I don't even rate Kennedy all that much. I mean, at heavyweight, I think he's going to do well and he'll probably be ranked, but Buday just pisses me off. Sometimes I just tape guys and I get really angry for no particular reason. And he's one of those guys that I just tape him and it just sets me off and ruins my whole day. Not actually, but yeah, kind of. I don't see how he wins this fight. I mean, I can't put that away. I can see how he wins this fight. He wins this fight by Kennedy being Kennedy. Just because he went up to heavyweight doesn't change the fact that sometimes the guy in the middle of a fight has a brain fart and just forgets what he's doing and just falls apart. Would I be 100% shocked? Would I be at all shocked if Buday just ended up cage pushing him and Kennedy's like, you know what? I could circle out, but what if I don't? I wouldn't be that shocked. But I think that I can make a better argument for Kennedy being minus 300 than I can for Buday winning the fight. I really don't think it's going to happen at a high clip. I think it can happen because I just said that Kennedy has brain farts, and I wouldn't be shocked if he just let himself be clinched for 15 minutes. But everybody's pointing at the OSP loss, and if you parlayed Kennedy there, you did it to yourself. But I kind of feel like OSP, even at this age right now, would beat Buday. That's how much I think of Buday. I think that OSP would beat him. So yeah, I think Kennedy's going to beat him too. And I do like the move up for Kennedy. I know some people are saying it won't help with his cardio. It won't help with his chin. I think it will. We haven't got to find out yet because he beat Barnett, common opponent, and he beat Breshke, also a common opponent if we're going to do some MMA math, but I tend to think that it's going to help with this cardio, and I tend to think that it's going to help with this durability because that's just usually how it is. And considering that he's 6'5", moving up in weight, I think it's probably good for him. And I think there's a difference between him and Span because I think he actually cares, and I don't think that Span gives a crap about anything. So while I had no interest in Span as a heavyweight, in certain fights, I'm going to have interest in Kennedy as a heavyweight. And I'd be lying if I told you I didn't think about parlaying Kennedy. I did ultimately decide not to do that to myself because that would be an extremely stressful experience if he lost. But I think he should win this fight. I think he's a much better striker at range, and it's not even quite close. His output is going to be better. I love the way he targets the body with the kicks. I think that's a nasty weapon at heavyweight, especially where a lot of these guys are not athletic. They're not super ripped in the midsection, and if you start targeting them there, it's going to hurt, and it's going to slow them down, and I think that's a really good weapon at heavyweight, and it's one that he's phenomenal at, and he's got the reach. He's got the range. He has really good hand control. He'll hold your hands and he'll just bop you in the face. He's just a way better striker than Buday, and I don't even think it's quite close. If anybody gets takedowns, I know there's this whole narrative of the Buday wrestling, which is bizarre as hell. Kennedy, I think, is a better offensive wrestler. If anybody gets takedowns, I think it's going to be him. We've seen him wrestle here and there. It's very rare, not really something he does, but we know that he can do it. And what I did notice going through his Instagram, because I do my Instagram stalking of everybody, of all these guys fighting, he has been grappling a lot. He just did a competition not too long ago. Seems to have won. It seems like he's really focusing on the grappling. So I do think that might be a little thing people aren't expecting here. Like, I think a lot of people are thinking he's going to come out here and just beat up Buday and maybe knock him out or something. But I low-key think the guy might be getting ready to start grappling a bit. And I wouldn't be shocked if he came in here and started wrestling and got some takedowns. I think that's a possibility. And I also think that it's interesting. He moved up to heavyweight and he gained, he put on the weight, but he doesn't seem slower. He still seems really fast. Like when he got Breshke, I had fight starts round 2 there, or the over 1.5. I forget which one. Regardless, it seemed like we were going to get there. And then he just angled off and got that counter, and the hands were fast there. So the speed's still there at heavyweight. And overall, I think it's just a great move for him. But Dogfather over here saying what I think I'm leaning towards. If I get to a play, it's probably going to be a total. It's probably going to be the over 2.5, because if Buday wins, we all know what it looks like. Like, we all know what it looks like if Buday wins. He's not finishing Kennedy. He's not submitting him. He's not knocking him out unless somebody beat the crap out of him beforehand. He's not. If Buday wins, he's cage pushing. Kennedy minus IQ, doesn't do anything, just stands there and lets him push him, and that's how Buday wins. And then if Kennedy wins, I feel like the only reason we're really even getting this price is because he knocked out Barnett, who was completely broken before the fight even started. I think he came in there with injuries and he was like limping and falling apart. And as it is, the guy's a 5'7" heavyweight. So finishing him doesn't mean a ton to me. And then Breshke, as much as I would have argued this maybe a year ago, Breshke's chinny. So knocking them two out doesn't mean a ton to me in terms of finishing upside at heavyweight. And while I did say all these things about Buday and how much I don't like him as a fighter, he does seem pretty durable. Now, he hasn't necessarily fought many hard hitters other than Gaziev, who did put him away. But I kind of feel like this fight probably goes over. I think there will be cage pushing. I think that Kennedy will be able to circle out, but knowing Kennedy, he's probably going to cage push too. Like I said earlier, I think there might be some grappling on the Kennedy side. It seems like that's a part of his game that he's been working on. And something we know with fighters is when they start working on something new in their game, they start to go for it a lot. Usually we talk about falling in love with the striking. Wouldn't be shocked if Kennedy suddenly fell in love with the grappling and tried to mix in some takedowns, and that took us over as well. So I do think the over might be a good spot if I am going to play this fight at all. And I just spent way too much time on this one. Kennedy all day. I can't with Buday. I just can't. Okay. Here, let's go back real quick. Catch up with the comments. All right. Champ saying he has zero desire to trust Kennedy the more he goes up in the rankings. Yeah, but the thing is, like, I can 100% see him being fairly highly ranked at heavyweight. It just doesn't mean a ton. Get out of here, Benino. Get out of here. Bet against Buday. At least you admit he lost. Dravi, I heard Buday. I told Dravi I was gonna go on a rant, so he knew this was coming. Champ saying haven't seen Buday still training at that Aspinall parking camp, but if he is, maybe there's a chance. To me, it seemed like he's not, but I didn't know he was ever there to begin with, so I could be wrong. And Dogfather, we already spoke about that. Lando, breaking news. April. No, he's talking about the Pratesh Gary fight. Man, are you really cutting that This is going to be such an interesting fight in terms of people's breakdowns. I feel like it's going to be all over the place. Kennedy points. Benino says, makes sense to me. Champ agreeing with the overs look. Londo saying Pratesh will be the biggest bet of his entire life. Jeez Louise. Benino, reach and volume should win him this. Just has to. Dude, who's Buday getting on top of? Other than Parisian. I got to move on before I go on another rant. But the Buday as a grappler narrative is one of the craziest narratives of 2023, 2024. Okay, moving on. We got Cortavious Romeus versus Cheng Ho Lee. Romeus 9-3-0, 31 years old, 5'4" with a 68-inch reach. Lee 10-1-0. He's 30 years old. He's 1 year younger. He's going to be 4 inches taller, and he's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. And Pepe, even then, like, how often though? Like, it wasn't something he was doing all the time. And I feel like people talked about him like he's some wrestler, and he's just not a wrestler. He's a clinch merchant. But anyways, back to this fight. I mean, I'm not high on either of these guys. I think I bet Romeus against Tavares, like maybe a parlay or something. That sounds like me, and that lost obviously. And then I did fade him with Bolaños, and then Lee. I haven't been able to get a read on this guy at all, and that's why I passed on this fight with Long. And Long, in my opinion, probably won that fight. It was very close. I lean towards the Lee side here. I think he's going to win, and I kind of want to bet him. I know that he doesn't really separate. He doesn't really stand out at anything, but he's a guy who can grapple very well. Not very well. He can grapple decently well. He's got good defensive grappling. He can be taken down. He can be controlled by good wrestlers, athletic wrestlers, but he just keeps going. He's got good get-ups. He's got good scrambling. I'd say overall his takedown defense is good. His cardio is very good. He's a solid striker. He's nothing special. He doesn't have a ton of power, but he's a decent striker, enough that he can set up his own grappling, his own wrestling, decent submissions, nothing insane, but he's a decent fighter. And then Romeus, I think he's also a decent fighter. He's very athletic. He's the more athletic guy. He's the more explosive guy. He's the more powerful guy here. But his fight IQ is abysmal. He wrestles when he doesn't need to. He strikes when he should wrestle. He does the opposite of what he should be doing. He's a little bit chinny. He's a little bit hittable. Even when he's doing well, he's not doing that well. Like the Michael Imperato fight was not impressive to me at all for Dana White's Contender Series performance, considering Imperato's like 37 years old. And talk about an intro sob story that they tried to do for Imperato. That was one of the craziest things I've ever seen on the Contender Series. But in terms of the fight here, I think on the feet, I don't really think either guy's a better striker. They're both not great. I guess I lean towards Lee a little bit. Romeus hits harder. Lee, maybe a little bit of a better striker. And I think Romeus will have success maybe early, similar to Zawapasi on Road to UFC. Maybe, similar to that, he can take him down. Maybe he can take his back in the first. I could see that. But I think Zawapasi's better than Romeus personally. Not that I think Romeus is bad. I think Zawapasi is actually pretty good. He's just had a hard time on the road to UFC in certain matchups, and he can gas. But Romeus can gas too. Romeus does slow down, and I can 100% see Lee just pacing him. And I kind of think that's what's going to happen. I think the first round, Romeus probably takes it. Maybe gets a few takedowns. Lee pops right back up, makes him work. But then I think as it goes on, as the fight progresses, I think Lee's going to start landing his own takedowns, threatening stuff. And ultimately, I think he's going to win a decision. I wouldn't be shocked if he finished in the third. But either way, I think he wins. I think he's got a higher ceiling. I think he's a better guy. And I'm just hoping for a slightly better price. But I am thinking of maybe bet Lee. and we can move on. Next up, we got the co-main event of the evening. We've got Joe Anderson Brito versus Pat Sabatini. Brito, he's going to be 17-4-1. He's going to be 30 years old, 5'8" with a 72-inch reach. Sabatini, 19-5-0, 34. He's 4 years older, same height, giving up 2 inches in reach. So I'm picking Sabatini here, and I understand the arguments for both sides 100%, but I just think that this should be a pick 'em, and it's not. Or at worst, like Brito minus 125, but I think pick 'em, and like I'm leaning towards Sabatini winning. I just think that, yes, Brito can knock him out 100%. I mean, if Damon Jackson puts him out, if, you know, all these guys are hurting him, I could see Brito 100% hurting him. I could see Brito knocking him out. I could see it early. I could. But I can also see Sabatini just taking him down and rinsing and repeating. I mean, JSP was taking him down. He was controlling him. I know Brito was popping back up really well, but at the end of the day, JSP was having a lot of success in the grappling. He was winning that fight, in my opinion, and he's an idiot. And he literally said, do something, and then got himself submitted. But I think that if you run that fight back multiple times, 10 times, I still kind of think JSP wins that fight more often than not, personally. And I just think that on the feet, Brito's a better striker, but his output's not that good. He's a good counter striker, but Sabatini's like mostly kicks anyways. And then like the power's there, but only really in the first round. I mean, it's not only in the first round. Like, he still got it all throughout the fight, but it definitely diminishes. And we've seen him taken down before. We've seen him held down even when he didn't get taken down. We've seen him make mistakes that ended up with him on bottom. He did it against Gomi. He did it against damn it. Who was it? Literally did these notes today. He fell off of Gomi's back, ended up on bottom for like 2 minutes. Was it Pierce? There were two fights in particular where he literally took the back and then fell off because he didn't take it well enough and he just rushed it a little bit. So he's submission over position. He makes mistakes. He can end up on his back that way. He can end up on his back by being taken down. And that takedown defense and that explosiveness of popping back up, that does diminish as the fight goes on. And Sabatini is a guy who I think is a good wrestler. I think he's an even better jiu-jitsu practitioner. I think his control is really good. I think his transitions are really, and his passing is really good. And I think his cardio is really good. So am I going to be, if I'm on Sabatini, am I going to be concerned every second we're on the feet? Yes. But I also think that he could just get the takedowns every round. I do think that he can do that. I do think he can sub Brito. I think he can win a decision. I think his ground and pound is really good. We saw that in the Almeida fight. The ground and pound did a lot of good work for him in that first round. And I just think that his control is very solid as well. So for me, it's a striker versus grappler. You could make an argument that it's not binary. You could argue, hey, Brito can wrestle too. And Brito has wrestled guys like Diego Lopez, for example, right? And beat him that way. You could make that argument, but I just don't really see him taking Sabatini down at a high clip. I can see it. I can see him maybe doing it once or twice. I can't see him doing it at a high clip, and I can't see him doing it without getting tired as the fight goes on. And the other thing with the Diego Lopez fight also, like, Diego Lopez first, like, just wasn't the same, first of all. Like, they're completely different matchups, but Diego also wasn't the same back then. He had a loss to Nate Robertson, I think, one fight after that or 2 fights after that. So he was not the guy who's about to fight for the title in literally 2 weeks. That was a different Diego Lopez. But yeah, Brito did a really good job there grappling him offensively and taking him down. I just don't really see that same thing working with Sabatini, because Diego's a guy who sometimes if you put him on his back, he'll be very happy to play off of his back. That's how Brito won. He was able to stay safe and just keep him there. Sabatini's not a guy like that. He's not going to try to sub Brito off his back. He's going to try to get back up and get on top, or reverse or sweep and get on top. So yeah, for me, I like Sabatini here. Like I said, even when Brito's not being taken down, like in the Gomi fight, he still ends up on his back through mistakes of his own or otherwise. And I forget who it was in one of the Discords I'm in. They mentioned like something about like it would be smart for Sabatini to pretty much just stick his head in a guillotine and survive that and then end up on top. And that's like, unironically, I can 100% see that working. When I was breaking down the JSP Brito fight, I said in my short, I was like, I'm picking JSP, but I know he's going to stick his head in the guillotine 4 or 5 times. But Sabatini, I think he's going to be able to defend something like that. I think my point is he can capitalize on the mistakes of Brito. And ultimately, I think this line's bananas. And I'm going with Sabatini here for the pick. Let's catch up with the chat. Dogfather saying, sorry I missed the Lee breakdown, but it's Lee. You did not miss it. He was definitely just sitting there waiting to write that comment. Brito is simply too alpha for him. Could be. Could be. Sham saying, I think Brito catches Sab, but there's a lot of room for concern. Him getting out grappled. Yeah. I get it. I think his KO is like, what, plus 170? JB saying Sabatini is the best grappler at 145. I guess if we're like, are we talking just wrestling or both, like jiu-jitsu and wrestling? Because if we're talking wrestling, you got to go Evloev. If you're talking jiu-jitsu, you're probably right. I would have to think a little bit more, but you're probably right. That is true, Bonino. JB saying top 5 in the UFC is talking about Sabatini's grappling. Dravi saying minus 200 Brito to go for a front choke. Dude, minus 1,000. You know he's going to go for a front choke. Sabatini ain't worried about him being on his back. I just don't think he's going to stay on his back. I think that's the thing. Henry saying, do you think you could beat Emmett in a street fight? If me and Emmett fought 100 times, I would get knocked out in 10 seconds 100 times. But all right, moving on. We got Josh Emmett versus Lerone Murphy. Emmett, 19-4-0, 40 years old, 5'6" with a 70-inch reach. Murphy, 15-0-1. He's 33. He's 7 years younger. He's going to be 3 inches taller, and he's going to have a 3.5-inch reach advantage. So I actually thought I was going to parlay Murphy. He was in my notes as a parlay piece, pre-tape, and then I taped it, and like, I can't do it. My reasoning pre-tape was Emmett's ancient. He's 40 years old, and I know he's durable, and I know he's still doing okay, and I know he did us all a favor and knocked out Bryce Mitchell, but how much damage has this poor man taken? Like, I know he's still winning these fights, but he's absorbed so many significant strikes. He's taken so much damage. I'm not a guy who just has stats out here for you, but I can only imagine what the numbers look like in terms of the strikes absorbed by Josh Emmett. It has to be, it's got to be close to 1,000 at this point in his UFC career. He's taken so many shots, and eventually that's going to catch up to you. I know that he hasn't really been knocked out in a long, like, he's only really been knocked out by Stevens. He got hurt by Yair, but he hasn't really been knocked out at all other than the Stevens fight. But eventually that's going to go. Eventually that durability is going to go. Is it going to be here? I don't know. I think Murphy does hit hard, but he's not really the best. He doesn't really have the best finishing upside. He's not really coming out here and just knocking dudes out left and right. He's not really chasing the finish when he does hurt guys. So I don't really know that he's going to finish Emmett, but I do think he's going to beat him. I think he's going to beat him over 25 minutes. I think that he's a way more well-rounded guy. He's the younger guy. He's absorbed less damage. I think he's faster. I think he's better at range. I think he's got more tools and weapons on the feet. I think if anyone's going to land takedowns, it's going to be Murphy. I think he's improved his grappling a lot. Emmett comes from a wrestling background, but he's like Justin Gaethje. He absolutely never uses it. He'll use it defensively, but even then, like, he still gets taken down. And I just think Murphy can win this fight by decision. I think he can win it by knockout. I think he should win this fight, but him getting hurt by Ige, not hurt, him getting dropped hard by Ige in the first round was a little concerning. I know Ige hits hard, but I think Emmett hits even harder. And that same kind of shot can 100% land from the Emmett side. So that's a concern. And then also, like, I had Murphy there against Ige in a parlay, I think. And I didn't remember this off memory, but when I taped it, like, he barely won that third round. Barely. He barely, like, him at chalk was a horrible bet against Ige because he got dropped in the first and then barely won that third. And really, he won that third because he ended up in a better position on the ground in, like, towards the end of the third round. Ige was actually on top at one point, but then Murphy ended up on top. And then they get back up. And Murphy's smart enough to know I got like 15 seconds left. I need the visuals. And he's the one he hit Ige with like 2 or 3 knees, and he threw a few more shots, and he was able to polish off the round and get that win. But that third round, you run that fight back 10 times. That third round could have gone to Ige a lot of times. So watching that back and just knowing the way Emmett is, and I've lost money fading Emmett before. I mean, I've told this story before. I was there live when Emmett fought Calvin Kattar in Texas. And I'm sitting there with my girlfriend at the time, now my fiance, but we're sitting there. And next to me is another guy with his girlfriend or whoever she is, a lady. And I'm cheering for Kattar because I got money on him. And this dude's cheering for Emmett and talking about how he has money on him, talking to his girl. And it was like the most awkward 25 minutes ever because we're both cheering at different intervals. And then we're clearly both on opposite sides, but we're not like talking shit to each other or anything like that. And then the fight ends and they start reading the decision. We're both sitting there like, okay. And then he gets it. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. I didn't think Emmett deserved that one, but he can fight close. He has the power where he can win moments. And long story short, I think Murphy should win this. I think Murphy, especially now that this division is wide open and we don't really know what Volk is going to look like, I think Murphy might end up being champ. I really do think that's a possibility. I think he's up there. I think it's possible. I have a small bet on his futures at plus 3,500 on the year. I don't expect it to hit, but that would be cool, wouldn't it? I think he's a possible future champ. I think he's an elite talent. I've always been super high on the guy. But if I'm trying to be responsible, and I am trying to be responsible, I don't think I should be parlaying Murphy at minus 300, so I'm not going to do that. And then I think Murphy by decision makes sense because Emmett is durable. But I just think eventually that durability is going to go. So that's my concern with playing Murphy by decision. So that's where I'm at. And that's it. That's all I got for you guys. Let's catch up with the chat. I'll run through my picks one more time, and then we'll get out of here. Let's see. Dravi saying, is that line crazy or is Josh too old washed? I think the line's kind of fine considering he is old. I mean, he's 40 years old. I think there's no argument there. It's just a fact of life. But I don't know if he's washed or not. And the line might end up being a little crazy. Benino saying, I think you can play Lerone and under to cover an Emmett KO, I guess, but then you're kind of depending on a Lerone decision. Pepe saying Emmett isn't knocking him out. I hope not. I like Murphy. Goes to decision is tempting. What's the price? Minus 150. I feel like that's just scary because then you have to really be confident in fading the Emmett knockout. And then you got to be confident that Emmett at 40 isn't going to be less durable. It makes sense, but it's scary. Dravi saying Emmett decision could be sneaky plus 650. I just don't think I feel like Murphy's a better minute winner. JB talking about the Murphy sub props. Interesting. Champ likes Marone. JB saying he was also in Texas. Yeah, we didn't talk yet, but maybe I'll be back there one day for another card. Or maybe you'll get your ass to New York. I did get robbed. I got robbed there. I got robbed against Buday with Breshki. Getting robbed all the time, Pepe. Sometimes I win robberies, so it's okay. Benino went to the Kattar fight live too. It was a good card. I got robbed on Kattar there, and I got robbed on Guram too. And then I saw Guram afterwards at In and Out. Champ saying, I hope odds on -1 keep getting better. You know, that's like the first thing I looked at, and I was pretty surprised that the odds are kind of crap on it. JB saying you got to come back to Texas. Champ saying Ilya not getting a finish on Emmett, but Lerone getting a finish. I mean, yeah, but also like years pass on, you know? I mean, Topuria fight was what? 24, 23? Is 2 years ago almost. So he's 40 years old at this point, you know, and he's taking so much damage. It was a good card. Making me want to go look through it now. And JB saying he'll be here in Newark in June. We just got word that we're getting Marab versus O'Malley, and we're getting Pena versus who is it? Harrison. That's like a fight card they would usually put in Canada, but they said, you know what's the one place worse than Canada? Jersey. But nah, we'll see if I end up there. They've been jacking the prices way too high recently. But all right, let's run through the picks, and then we'll get out of here. Loma, Badogger Pass, Alencar, Henry. I don't know what to do here. Frunza, Badogger Pass, Barbosa, Santos, Gurule, Finney, Badogger Pass, Tavares, Badogger Pass, Kennedy, Lee, Sabatini, Murphy. Those are the picks, and that's all I got for you guys. For my bets, my notes, my breakdowns, check out the Dub Club. It's my Discord. You can join the Discord for free. There's still a free section. You can come check it out. We talk fights there. But if you want my bets, my notes, my breakdowns, that is behind a paywall now. You can DM me. I'll give you a promo code. It's Couch Warrior Pod. I'll give it to you here. Couch Warrior Pod is a promo code. Should give you 20% off for your first month. If you need the link, hit me up. I'll give it to you, but it's literally in the description of this video. That's where all my bets will be. Right now, I only got one bet, and I don't think I'm going to add way too much more because this is a really tricky card. But thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.